Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of clinical precision. I mean,
Yeah.
you break your arm, the x-ray shows a jagged white line right across the bone, and the doctor just points to the screen and says, well, there it is. That's the problem.
It's totally binary. I mean,
Right.
when you have a fracture or you don't, the mechanism of the problem is completely visible.
Exactly. And the solution is straightforward. But if you zoom out from the individual and you look at humanity as a whole, our entire global society, suddenly that x-ray machine is just completely
Oh,
useless.
for sure. The diagnostic landscape we're looking at is incredibly murky.
Because we're dealing with the ultimate human paradox.
Yeah.
We are a species that is just jaw-droppingly intelligent. I mean, we literally manipulate the quantum fabric of the universe.
We do.
And yet, simultaneously, we are so persistently, almost stubbornly self-destructive. So, welcome to the deep dive, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Today, we're exploring a really fascinating sociological and philosophical text that basically attempts to x-ray this global paradox.
And what's great is that the source material uses some incredibly clarifying thought experiments to do this.
Yeah, the framing is so good.
It really is. It asks us to look at Earth from the perspective of an outsider. So think like a time traveler or an alien observer.
Which sounds a bit sci-fi, but it works perfectly.
It does, because it bypasses our own biases. It helps diagnose the actual root mechanisms of human suffering. It's really an exercise in identifying the invisible assumptions that govern how you and, well, everyone else live.
It's like a journey to understand why our highly futuristic technology is being run by ancient biological hardware, and how you can start looking at your own society with totally fresh eyes. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Let's start with the core diagnosis the text makes right out of the gate. It draws this really rigid boundary between intelligence and wisdom.
Right.
And I feel like we culturally conflate those two concepts all the time, right? We just treat them as synonyms for being smart.
We do, but they represent entirely different operational mechanisms.
Yes.
Well, the text defines intelligence as the engine of capability. So it's the sheer cognitive computing power you need to understand physics or invent tools or manipulate your environment.
Okay, so just raw brain power.
Exactly. Wisdom, however, is the framework of application. It's the ability to actually foresee the long-term consequences of those tools.
So deciding how they're used.
Or even if they should be used at all. you know,
Yeah.
like to benefit the whole.
Right. Intelligence tells you how to build the tool, but wisdom tells you what the tool is actually for.
Precisely. And historically, humanity has just obsessed over the intelligence side.
While leaving the wisdom side completely vacant, it kind of reminds me of, it's like a teenager who was just handed the keys to a Formula One race car.
No, that's a good analogy.
Right, like we have this incredibly powerful engine, our intelligence, but we haven't developed the steering or the brakes yet, the wisdom.
What's fascinating here is that the source text reveals humanity's greatest problems are almost never technological in nature.
Yeah, that blew my mind a bit.
I mean, consider the Manhattan Project.
Yeah.
The sheer mathematical and physical brilliance required to calculate critical mass, to engineer the implosion mechanism.
You literally split the atom.
Yes, that is the absolute pinnacle of human intelligence.
Right.
But the moment the Trinity test succeeded, we had unleashed a literal world-ending power without any corresponding geopolitical wisdom on how to avoid a global arms race.
We had the intelligence to build the bomb, but not the wisdom to stop killing each other or to resolve a border dispute without threatening global annihilation.
Exactly.
Or, look at the internet. The engineering behind it is just miraculous. We laid millions of miles of fiber optic cables across the crushingly deep ocean floor to transmit packets of light.
It's unbelievable when you really think about it.
It is. We instantly connected the globe. We have the data of the entire human species available right in our pockets.
Right.
Yet, structurally, millions of people report feeling profoundly isolated, depressed, and disconnected.
Because the intelligence to connect us is there, but the wisdom to build networks that foster actual human connection is missing.
Yeah, instead we just optimize algorithms for outrage and engagement.
Yeah, it's a huge gap. Another glaring example from the text is global agriculture.
Oh, this one is so frustrating.
It really is. Through synthetic fertilizers, advanced irrigation, genetic crop modifications, our agricultural intelligence currently produces enough actual calories to feed every single human being on this planet,
With a surplus left over.
with a huge surplus. Yet mass hunger and starvation still persist globally.
So we have the immense capability to solve these massive problems, but we just keep driving the race car into a ditch.
Right.
If the problems aren't technological, I mean, if we have the calories, we have the communication networks, we have the energy, what is the actual problem?
Well, the source diagnoses these as organizational and psychological failures. And to illustrate this, the text introduces that alien observer thought experiment we mentioned earlier.
Okay, yeah, walk us through that.
So imagine an extraterrestrial intelligence parks its ship in orbit and just scans the Earth. What is the physical reality they actually observe?
Well, they'd see staggering, almost incomprehensible abundance.
Exactly.
They'd see automated factories churning out goods 24 hours a day. They'd see these massive, intricate global supply chains moving millions of tons of cargo seamlessly across oceans.
Right, but when that alien observer zooms in on the individual human experience, they discover millions of people trapped in grinding poverty,
Drowning in debt.
terrified about their basic survival from one month to the next. The alien would be logically paralyzed.
Because it just doesn't compute.
Right. They would look at our massive surplus of resources and ask, well, if the physical capability to eradicate this suffering exists, why is it permitted to continue?
Wait, let me challenge this for a second, because I know you listening are probably thinking the exact same thing right now.
Sure, go ahead.
Physical scarcity, IS real, isn't it? I mean, we only have so much arable land on this planet. We only have a finite amount of, like, rare earth metals for our smartphones and batteries. So how can the source claim scarcity is just an illusion?
That's a totally fair question, but the text makes a really crucial distinction between finite earthly resources and manufactured economic scarcity.
Okay, what's the difference?
You're absolutely right that cobalt and lithium are finite. We cannot build infinite smartphones.
Right.
But the suffering the alien observes isn't because a family in poverty lacks lithium. It's because they lack food, clean water, and shelter.
Oh,
The scarcity of those basic human needs is entirely manufactured. Human suffering is overwhelmingly mislabeled as a scarcity problem when the mathematics prove it's actually a problem of distribution.
okay, I see the distinction. So it's not a lack of calories in the world.
Exactly.
But wait, so when you see a news story about widespread poverty or lack of resources, the source is arguing that it's actually just a massive artificial traffic jam in how we share things. Because a traffic jam kind of implies it's a mistake, you know? Resources accidentally getting stuck. But the text seems to suggest it's more like a toll booth.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to frame it.
Like we intentionally create these bottlenecks. People starve next to a warehouse full of grain because human design economic rules, these toll booths prevent them from accessing it unless they meet arbitrary conditions.
Yes, the toll booth is totally intentional. I mean, we actively destroy surplus crops to keep market prices high.
Which is just insane.
It is. We leave millions of homes vacant as investment vehicles while millions of people literally sleep on the streets.
Yeah.
This is what you, as a listener, really need to internalize because it radically shifts your entire worldview. We are conditioned from birth to operate from a mindset of natural lack.
We're always taught, there just isn't enough to go around.
Right. But once you realize the problem is actually systemic mismanagement, the paradigm completely flips.
Because if it's a lack of resources, well, then we're just victims of a harsh universe. Nothing we can do. But if it's mismanagement, if it's artificial toll booths, it means someone or some system is actively doing the mismanaging. It's a choice.
Or, to be more scientifically accurate, a deeply ingrained biological habit.
Oh, okay.
The systems we have were designed for an era of brutal survival, and they just continue to operate long after basic survival is no longer the primary challenge for our species.
Okay, so if these artificial toll booths are making us miserable, and we know we have the resources to just tear them down, why do we tolerate them? Why do we cling to these poorly distributing systems?
Because we aren't just fighting bad policies. We are fighting our own evolutionary neurochemistry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the text takes a really deep dive into our ancient survival circuits, specifically the amygdala and the cortisol system.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's explain the mechanics of that, because this is where the biological hardware clashes with our modern reality.
Yeah.
How exactly does cortisol keep us trapped?
Okay, so your amygdala is basically the threat detection center of your brain. It evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in environments where extreme scarcity was a daily, lethal reality.
Right, like a bad winter literally meant starvation.
A rival tribe meant death. So when the amygdala senses a threat, it triggers the release of cortisol and adrenaline.
The fight or flight response.
Exactly. And what cortisol does biologically is fascinating, but also super problematic today. It physically diverts blood flow and energy away from the prefrontal cortex.
Which is the part of your brain responsible for long-term planning, empathy, rational thought. Right.
Exactly. It pulls energy from there and pushes it toward your immediate survival instincts.
Yeah.
Fight, flight, or hoard.
Wow. It's like we are trying to run the most advanced modern software, our conscious knowledge of abundance, on this ancient, buggy, fear-driven hardware.
That analogy perfectly captures the friction.
Yeah.
Humanity radically upgraded its technological environment, but we are still running on fear-driven biological hardware.
We're running a high-frequency trading algorithm on a 1980s pocket calculator.
Exactly. The inputs are modern, complex, abundant global economy are coming in way too fast for this primitive processor.
So the human brain just freezes, panics, and defaults to its original programming.
Right. It says, hoard everything for yourself because winter is coming.
Yeah.
Our subconscious absorbed the logic of extreme scarcity as the permanent, unchanging rule of existence. So even when a modern billionaire has enough wealth to feed a small nation,
Their ancient biology still screams that they don't have enough.
exactly, compelling them to hoard more.
And the source text points out that this fear-driven neurochemistry has heavily influenced our foundational cultural institutions, too.
It has.
It explicitly discusses how belief systems and religions have historically functioned in this context. And just to be very clear to everyone listening, we are impartially reporting the sociological observation made in the text here.
Right, we're not taking a stance on the theological validity of any religion.
Not at all. Just looking at the sociological mechanism.
And the mechanism the text describes is that early human institutions had to create cultural frameworks to make sense of a world that was dominated by brutal scarcity.
Yeah.
Historically, some religious and cultural systems codified these outdated assumptions. They framed poverty as an inevitable fact of life,
Or they framed strict social hierarchies as completely natural.
or even framed suffering as divinely ordained.
Which, honestly, if you think about it from a strict survival standpoint, makes logical sense for the time.
It really does.
If you literally do not have enough food for your village, it maintains societal order to have a belief system that says, your suffering is part of a grander plan. Just accept your place in the hierarchy.
Right, it prevents constant violent uprisings. It was a coping mechanism for scarcity.
But the text introduces the blank slate theory here, right?
Yes. To remind us that these frameworks are not immutable laws of physics. No child is born believing that poverty is inevitable.
Or that humans must fiercely compete to survive in an artificially scarce economy.
Exactly. A newborn's amygdala doesn't spike with cortisol when the stock market dips.
Because those assumptions are entirely learned. We inherit them from our environment, our parents, the media.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that realization is actually incredibly empowering.
How so?
Well, because if these beliefs are learned habits, like software installed after birth, it means they can be uninstalled. We can rewrite the code.
Which leads the source to its most ambitious thought experiment. If we don't have to believe in artificial scarcity, what would happen if we wipe the societal slate totally clean?
Yes.
The text asks us to redesign civilization using first principles thinking.
Right.
Let's actually break down first principles for a second because it's a term thrown around in tech circles a lot.
Oh, constantly.
It basically means stripping a problem down to its most fundamental, undeniable truths, and then building your solution up from there, completely ignoring how things, quote unquote, have always been done.
Exactly. Instead of looking at our current broken economic systems and asking, how do we patch this leaky pipe? Or how do we adjust interest rates to slightly reduce inflation?
Just tweaking around the edges.
Right. First principles thinking asks, what is the actual physical reality?
And the physical reality is we have billions of tons of food.
We have advanced building materials.
Automated energy grids.
Yes. Knowing all this, what system would we create if we started from scratch today?
Okay, so the source outlines what it calls a dream society built on these principles. But I have to admit, when I read this section, my immediate reaction was like deep skepticism.
Which is very common.
I mean, it outlines a world where basic necessities, food, shelter, healthcare, are unconditionally guaranteed for everyone.
Yes.
Automation doesn't just cut corporate costs, it completely eliminates dangerous and repetitive labor for human beings. Education becomes the highest priority of the species.
It sounds wonderful, right?
It sounds incredibly utopian. Why wouldn't this just devolve into a dystopian scenario where nobody does anything and society just completely stagnates?
See, your skepticism is actually a perfect real-time example of the amygdala at work.
Wait, really? My amygdala.
Yes, you are applying the rules of a scarcity-driven world to an abundance-driven model.
Oh.
The text argues that we have a massive failure of imagination. We equate suffering and grueling labor with human worth. We assume that the threat of starvation is the only valid motivator for progress.
Which I guess is what we've been taught.
But if you look at the greatest scientific and artistic achievements in history, they rarely came from people operating in sheer panic for their next meal.
That's a really good point.
They came from people who had the security to actually think deeply.
So we assume people would just do nothing if their basic needs were met, but the text argues they would finally be free to do something meaningful.
Exactly. Education would replace wealth accumulation as the primary status symbol. Scientific research would explode because millions of minds would be freed from meaningless drudgery.
Wow.
And we are physically and technologically capable of building this society right now. We aren't waiting on the invention of the replicator from Star Trek to do this.
Right. The tech is already here. We are the bottleneck. Which, well, it brings up a profound philosophical question for you, the expert, and for everyone listening right now.
Yeah.
If the entire purpose of progress, the whole reason humanity invents tools, cures diseases, and builds technology is to improve human life.
Wow.
Why do we collectively accept the assumption that technological progress should primarily increase corporate profits rather than increasing human freedom?
We accept it because we are held hostage by the status quo.
Yeah.
The text makes it incredibly clear that we've internalized the rules of a game we just no longer need to play.
Yeah.
And this places humanity at the most critical crossroads in its entire history.
The ultimate crossroads.
Yes. The future is no longer constrained by the limits of our technology. It is constrained purely by the limits of our belief.
People literally become prisoners of what they think is possible. So what does this all mean? I find the historical irony here it's staggering.
How so?
Well, we look back at history and we laugh at the people who thought heavier than air flight was a delusion.
Oh, right.
We think, oh, how naive, they just didn't understand aerodynamics. Yet we do the exact same thing today. Someone suggests a society with guaranteed basic necessities, a society where automation frees us from wage labor, and we just roll our eyes.
We scoff.
Yeah, we scoff and say, impossible, human nature won't allow it, the economy would collapse.
We suffer from a chronic arrogance of the present.
Arrogance of the present, I like that.
We constantly assume that whatever systems we currently have represent the absolute peak of realistic human organization. The smartest minds of their eras thought space travel and instant global communication were fundamentally impossible.
Until the very moment they became reality.
Exactly. The greatest obstacle to our future isn't reality. It's our allegiance to outdated beliefs.
But the stakes now are infinitely higher than when we were just trying to invent airplanes.
Way higher.
The source warns that if we fail to change our assumptions, our incredible technology will simply amplify our self-destructive habits. Our tools will just crash utter and faster.
Because every powerful tool creates a divergence of possibilities. The same atomic knowledge can build a clean energy reactor or a hydrogen bomb.
Right.
This raises an important question, and it brings us to the final and arguably most critical frontier discussed in the source material, the evolution of intelligence itself.
We are talking about artificial intelligence.
Yes, enhanced intelligence.
Yeah.
Collective intelligence.
The text suggests this impending transformation will be more seismic than the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, and the internet combined.
It is the ultimate test of our wisdom. Because for the first time in human history, we're not just building better tools, we are building new forms of cognition. The concept of AI alignment is central here. If we blindly train these new superintelligences on our historical data,
Which is data generated by our ancient, scarcity-driven, cortisol-soaked brains.
exactly. If we do that, we are going to encode our own artificial toll booths into a system of infinite capability. We will literally teach a godlike intelligence to hoard and compete.
Would be programming our own self-destruction right into the machine.
Exactly. This century is the window where humanity is forced to decide what it actually wants to become. We have to actively encode wisdom into these systems, not just our historical anxieties.
That is incredibly heavy, but also, wildly exhilarating.
It
It
is.
means we have agency.
We do.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to turn this directly to you listening right now. We've talked extensively about society's assumptions today, but society doesn't actually exist, right? It's just an aggregate of individuals.
Wait, it's just people.
It's just you and me and everyone else. So I want you to deeply reflect on your own inherited operating system. What beliefs about how society must work, how economics must operate, or what you must do to be valuable have you just absorbed without ever demanding proof? Where are the artificial toll booths in your own mind?
It's an uncomfortable audit to perform, for sure,
Yeah,
but it is the prerequisite for any real progress.
definitely.
And I want to leave you with one final, perhaps slightly haunting thought that builds on everything we've discussed today.
Okay, let's hear it.
We detailed how our biological brains, specifically the amygdala, are hardwired to perpetuate the myth of scarcity, flooding us with cortisol and preventing rational long-term resource distribution.
Right, that ancient biology is the root of our misery.
But consider this. Could the impending evolution of artificial intelligence be the exact mechanism that allows humanity to finally bypass its own biological limits?
Right, what do you mean?
Think about the physical reality of an AI. If we successfully align it with human flourishing, we will have created an intelligence that does not have an amygdala.
Oh, wow.
An entity that never feels cortisol, never fears starvation, and has absolutely no biological imperative to hoard resources out of panic.
That's profound.
It might just be the only way we can finally design and manage a global society based on pure, unclouded wisdom, rather than primitive survival.
An intelligence totally free from the fear of winter. The ultimate upgrade to our biological hardware. What an incredible place to leave it. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's a pleasure.
Let those assumptions crumble, keep questioning the toll booths, and we'll see you next time.